All right, so this is Ms. Barron and Ms. McCrary talking through lesson plan comments and corrections for 10/9/2020. I'm sorry, for the week of 10/13/2020. And I'm going to share my screen, Ms. McCrary. Can you see that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so let's look at the lesson plan you wrote for 10/13. And okay, so we're focusing on, right now, step one, are the objectives and performance tasks aligned? And is the lesson getting us where they need to, both in rigor and by the test? So the objective you got is we will evaluate details read to determine key ideas. And the performance task that you have is, I will know I'm successful when I can determine the key idea from a story and provide relevant key details to support my findings. So as we're looking at this, of course, we have those 5 successes that are the 5 things that we're trying to do. So first, is the objective aligned? And is it aligned with the rigor and how it's going to be tested? So if you're looking at your teaks up here at the top, which teak are you aligned to?
The first one?
Okay, so evaluating teak. Okay, so you are. So you're aligned to the teak, so that's good. So then what's the next question we ask? Are we aligned to the test and to how it's going to be tested on STAR? So when you guys pulled, did you guys pull your Lead Forward IQ when you were designing this lesson plan?
I did not pull it.
Okay, so let's pull Lead Forward IQ because that'd be the next step to answer that question. Is it aligned? So when I pull Lead Forward IQ, let me go back.
I guess when I'm sorry. I guess when I do this, like I'm thinking like the objective and the success or whatever. What is the other word for it?
The performance
task. Yeah, like that's what I'm like always trying to connect. But I guess
yes.
I'm missing a piece here.
Well, and that's okay. To be honest, we all are. Everybody's missing this piece. So this is what we're going to work on until we get this piece, and then we'll nail the next piece. Okay. So you did great making sure it was aligned. Your teaks were all in the cluster that they were supposed to be, and you were picking a teak from the cluster. The step that I think we missed, and I'm not asking you to rewrite this for this week, but for the next week, the step that we missed was looking at those lead forwards specifically for where your teak should be that day based on like the genre and the focus where you are.
Okay.
So I'm going to go to ELAR and I'm going to select my grade level, which you already know. Okay, and then I'm going to pick the teaks clusters. Okay, and I'm going to come down and you're using literary nonfiction that day. So I'm going to hit literary nonfiction, but you also know that the genre for 2A is literary nonfiction and fiction. So when you're looking at what you're going to teach, like if you're from the lesson plan point, so this would be, before you're actually writing the plan for next time, I'm going to put in whatever genres I'm focused on because my goal is to see how are the teaks in the cluster fixed with literary and nonfiction and fiction. So how exactly are these playing out for how they're going to be tested? Again, not just for the test, but because the test is trying to get us to the rigor, the correct rigor. Okay. So when I do that, I'm going to come down and look. So for fiction, our choices, according to your lesson plan, again, that was correct, 75G, 75E, 76C. Which of those do we see under fiction?
76C, 7... What was the other one? I'm so sorry.
75E, 75G, and 76C. So we've got 76C. You're right.
I was going to say, I only see that one.
That's it. Okay. How about literary nonfiction?
I see 76C.
Yep.
Did you say 76G or D?
75E and G. Okay. So we've got 75E.
Oh, 2 of them. Mm-hmm.
All right. So which teaks are actually tested from the ones in the cluster when you're looking at literary nonfiction and fiction?
76C and 7.5E.
7.5E. So now let's go back to your lesson plan. Which teak did you focus on?
7.5G.
Do you see the miss?
Yes.
And then I hear it in your lesson plan. So here's what I love in your lesson plan. You had to explain it away. You saw this as a teacher and you were trying to explain it away because you said in memoirs, which is literary nonfiction, writers describe scenes and situations rather than simply stating their key ideas. It's because key ideas aren't a focus of this type of literature. Does that make sense?
Right.
So if I'm writing this lesson, no, you're good. No, you're good. You're good. Listen.
Well, now I'm like, as you're reading this, I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I know that's what you're saying. Like.
And so here I'm going to pull it the way it's tested. And we already know that. I'm going to select all the tests because we just saw them. So what should our focus teak be?
7.6 or 7.5E. 7.6.
It's going to be 7.5E and 7.6C. And then, so then I'm going, okay, so if I'm pulling a fiction, I want to focus on 7.6C because that's the only one that's tested. If I'm pulling a literary nonfiction, it's 7.5E, 7.6C. So now I'm going to look at the questions and say, is this one that we're seeing together? Like they're those that they're testing more than one TEK with a question, or do I need to pick sort of my primary focus, right? So I'm going down, here's fiction first. And again, I know you picked a literary nonfiction, but I'm going to read this as if next week I'm trying to decide, should I pick a fiction or a literary nonfiction?
Okay.
Now, if this is the focus text, the central text that you guys as a team have picked, and we're saying this is our central text that we're doing all week, then you're going to go from the text. If this is the one we're working on how to analyze a text, then I'm going to go with whichever one of these TEKs best fits with that, instead of picking my piece based on the TEKs. Yeah. All right, so we go down and fiction is tested. Right here, it's the 7.5E, it's the inferences. So this is connecting text evidence to inferences. So that's not our G. So this is going back, and if you look at the cluster, 7.5F is in there as well. So you could choose to go back and say, okay, so the way this cluster is written is for 7.5F and 7.6C to be the focus of any fiction text we're reading. And then I go down to the next question, 7.5F and 7.6C. So the focus is, with fiction, looking at inference with text evidence. I've got the next fiction passage. Same thing, 5F and 6C. Same thing, 5F and 6C. Same thing. So everything for fiction is inference based on text evidence.
So I have a question. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I have a question real quick. So I know me and Duty and Trujillo, I think we all have pretty much similar days. And I cannot remember, like, did we hit those inferencing TEKs on those other two?
I don't know. I'm looking at you first.
Okay, that's fine. I just wasn't, because I remember us talking about it. And I just know that I focused on that 7.5G.
Yep. And it may be that may. So then my question would be, okay, so if we know 7.5G is not tested in this context, and we know that we're an F campus, do we have time to then focus there at all? And we don't. So if we've got 3 days hitting what is one tested TEK, we got to find something else to work on.
Right.
Or we need to hit the skill with more, you know what I'm saying? Because that's where we're getting into knowing where we are and getting our kids to the rigor that they need on the things that they most needed on to get them out of this situation, get us all out of the situation.
So basically we don't even really need to touch on
not with memoirs.
Fiction.
Not with memoirs, so not with nonfiction and literary nonfiction. Now, when we cycle this TEK back around with nonfiction, that's all we're going to talk about.
Right.
Because that's going to be a hugely tested TEK in nonfiction.
And the crazy thing is, Baron, we talked about that. We're like, we don't usually talk about main idea or key idea in fiction.
Yep. So then my question is to go back and go, okay, so what all is incorporated in literary nonfiction and fiction? And it's got to be something. Is there something in fiction, poetry, whatever? Is there something in that fiction, or where is this? Where are we supposed to? Because it's in the cluster. So to be honest, I'm going to email Donna and say, why 7.5G in the cluster? Help me see this, because I'm not seeing it. And that's where we'll ask above my pay grade to understand why that was put in the cluster in the first place. Because I would have never put 7.5G in the cluster. I'm not seeing it. So we can ask those questions.
Okay.
Sorry, now I'm trying to get down to nonfiction because there's a heck of a lot of 7.5C and 7.5S fictions. So let me just scroll on down to nonfiction, see how it's tested. Here we go, literary nonfiction. So literary nonfiction, which is what we're reading, is the same thing, 7.5F and 7.6C. So it's that inference.
Okay.
So have you built your Canvas for next week?
No, not yet.
Okay, so if I'm thinking, I'm going to give you 2 options, and you're welcome to take either. I am not asking you to rewrite on the schedule that we're on, so you can choose not to rewrite. But I also know some teachers after this discussion go, okay, I'm not going to be happy to teaching this lesson, so I'm okay with whichever personality you have. I'm okay with what you want to do. Okay?
You know what I'm going to do.
Because you still got to give it to your team in a time. You still got to talk to your team about this.
Right.
But if I'm asking myself, okay, how can I then rewrite this? Let's look at your other team's days real quick and see if there's a way that we can use something if you're wanting to rewrite. So Tuesday, I'm just going to stay on your lesson plan, but I'm going to pull their Tuesday and let's see if there's anything we can do. So that's Tuesday. Then we got Wednesday, and we've got to focus on.
And they have it too.
7.5G and 7.6D. Paraphrase and summarize text in ways that maintain meaning and logical order. So we're going to have to go through and look at.
See if 7.6D is on there.
If 7.6, and we know that 5G is not, so we'll have to see if 7.6D is on there. So let's go ahead and look. Let me go back to, where'd I lose it? Right there. 7.6D it was.
I think, yeah, 7.6.
ELAR. Let's go to select grade 7 next. And we're going to go with literary nonfiction and fiction. And we're going to go with 7.6D. And we got 7.6D under fiction and literary nonfiction.
Okay.
Okay, so let's see where we can go there. We'll see what we can build on. Oh, and I'm just going to choose the last 3 years just to give us some, that'll still give us what we need without having a billion questions. All right. So this is going to be paraphrase and summarize. It's going to be best summary, 7.6D. Best summary. It's best summary.
Okay.
Which is just a standard looking at how the kids choose best summary and how that's tested. So now I'm going to go back.
I'm sorry, what was it? 7.6D? Was that what it was?
7.6D is best summary. So now let's look at the next day. And the next day is writing.
Oh yeah, it's a writing day. So
that's okay. And then again, we've got 7.5G. So we've got 3 days on a TEK that's not even tested. And this is 7.5H to synthesize and also paraphrase and summary. So if I'm looking at the test and what we should have been teaching, it's inference with text evidence and it's best summary based on this. And we know those are both heavily tested TEKs. And then I'm doing it in a way that's getting them up to that. How do I analyze a text? You know, and then how does my text analysis help me to make summaries, and how does my text analysis help me to make those inferences with text evidence? Yeah, so.
Makes a lot of sense. Like, cause I mean, like now that, like we missed that whole part of it, that lead forward piece.
So that's really important. So what I'm going to ask is make sure as a team that next week, like that should have happened today. Right. What should have happened in PLC today is everybody should have brought their know-and shows. And this should have been on the know-and show under the star part that you'd already looked at the questions, you know, with your know-and show. How is this tested? And then you're picking the TEKs that you're going to focus on as you're teaching them how to read and analyze authentically. Based on what's tested. You're going to pick the TEKs that you're going to check based on what's going to come up. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, it does.
All right.
I feel kind of like an idiot.
Don't. Yeah, I just went through my own meeting and I really do. I feel like I had to sit my head down for a couple of minutes after your kids and be like, okay, God, I gotta like, because I'm not doing my job. Everything that was said in that meeting, I was 1,000% on board with and understand in my head. Mm-hmm. How I'm communicating it to your team is 100% ineffective. So I've got to figure out a way to effectively communicate what I believe in, and what I'm hearing from the top is what I should believe in a way that's allowing you guys to understand how we need to turn that around in our. So this is my failure to communicate something that is new learning for us to the team. So I don't want you to feel bad at all, because you're doing the things that we ask you to do. You're doing the TEK clusters. You're trying to pull those clusters and work from the TEK. It was my failure to communicate the full picture thoroughly. So just add that step next time. Add that testing step before we write this again. And since it's a whole week, I don't know what we'll do. I'm going to go through. It may, if we're going to focus on 7.5G, we need to change the text, but that would take us completely out of our genre that we're focusing on anyway. So this isn't an easy fix. So
and I mean, I don't mind going back in and rewriting, like if I can talk to the team or whatever and focus more on, well, I mean, it's 3 days of it. So everyone would have to go in.
You don't mind, but I don't think that's going to be the best thing for your team, considering grades are due and everything else. So I'm thinking we should just roll with it for a week. Okay. And then the next week we'll make sure that we do better. I think the stress level of rewriting is not worth the payoff of 1 week.
So if I don't rewrite, and well, that would still, because I'm okay. Yeah, okay. Okay.
I'm going to go back through and I'm going to look at all the days in together.
Because I mean, I can always incorporate.
Yeah, that's
like the inferencing and stuff into what we're already doing.
I'm going to see if there's any small tweaks we can make to get us on the TEK that we need to focus on. That's not a huge rewrite. but just before, have y'all created all of your canvas? Did everybody show up with their canvas created
Not
today?
everybody, but
Pretty much. Okay.
it's there.
So,
So
all right. So yeah, so we don't have time to do all that. It's just
okay.
too much. So, yeah, we'll figure out. So just for the next week, we won't miss that step. We'll be good to go.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. All right. Any questions or thoughts before we're done?
No.
Oh,
It makes
all
a
right.
lot of sense.
Good. Okay, well then here on video, so I get your evidence. So you got evidence too. Would you tell me thoughts on doing it this way?
I really like, because I'm a very visual person. So
Okay.
like being able to see what I messed up on and being talked through it, like versus, hey, let's fix this or whatever. Like
It
to me,
helps.
seeing it and walking through it, like that helps me. But I mean, a lot of people don't learn like me. So I don't
Okay.
know. But this
For
would
you,
help.
this works.
Yeah, for me, this works because I'm getting feedback like one-on-one, and I like that.
And it took 10, it was a 10-minute. We've been here 10 minutes. So does that feel like a fair exchange of time for what you're getting? Or is
I
that
think
too much time?
no, I think it's great because I want to. I'll be honest. I hate writing lesson plans. They're hard for me. They've always been hard for me. But that I'm getting better. But this to me will help.
Okay.
A lot.
Then you and I will continue to do it this way. If this
Okay.
works for us, then we'll just say 10 minutes or less, in and out, done, and we'll find time during the week to do it.
Perfect.
All right. That sounds great. Thank you so much for being my guinea pig. I really appreciate working with you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Bye.
Bye.